What if your child's only protector from harm was your pet cat? Some might laugh, thinking pets are just companions or, at best, sources of comfort. But in the Miller household, everything changed the day Jamie came home and met Moose, the giant Maine Coon cat, whose loyalty would come to mean everything. The day Jamie Miller came home from the hospital, sunlight streamed through the windows of the modest Miller home, painting patterns across the floorboards and bouncing off Moose's glossy brown tabby fur. Ashley, exhausted but radiant, carried her newborn gently into the nursery. Ryan followed, his face etched with a mixture of pride and nervous excitement, balancing a camera in one hand and a diaper bag in the other. Moose, at first, was nowhere to be seen. For a cat as large as a small dog, he was surprisingly quiet when he wanted to be. Ashley carefully placed Jamie in the crib, heart pounding with the tremors of new motherhood. Was she enough? Could she really keep this tiny life safe? She leaned in to adjust the blanket, then felt the faintest brush against her ankle. Moose. He sat there, a brown and cream sentinel, his green eyes wide and unblinking as he regarded the new family member. He chirped, a soft, questioning trill, and then leaped gracefully onto the padded rocking chair across from the crib. He didn't take his eyes off Jamie, not for a moment. From that first night, Moose set the tone, while Ashley and Ryan stumbled through midnight feedings and lullabies. Moose was always there. If Jamie cried, Moose would arrive within seconds, chirping and nuzzling at the crib as if trying to help. Ashley would often find him sleeping beneath the crib, tail flicking gently, purring with a rumble that seemed to calm Jamie more effectively than any music box. The neighbors would joke, "What a cat. Must be part dog, the way he follows that baby around." Days bled into weeks. Life for the Millers settled into a new rhythm. Mornings were a mix of chaos and laughter. Ryan making coffee with one hand, Ashley bouncing Jamie on her hip, Moose weaving between their feet, always keeping an eye on the baby. Ryan would sometimes pause mid-sip and smirk. "If I didn't know better, I'd say Moose thinks Jamie is his kitten." It was true. Moose shadowed Jamie everywhere. When Jamie began to roll over, Moose would flop down next to him on the playmat, stretching a massive paw protectively across the baby's legs. When Jamie tried to sit up, Moose chirped encouragement and nuzzled him gently. If Jamie fussed, Moose responded before either parent could, meowing softly and licking the baby's tiny hands. Friends and family started to notice the connection. "That cat's obsessed with your baby," Ashley's mother said one Sunday, watching as Moose circled the crib 3 times before curling up beneath it, tail twitching. "It's like he's standing guard." Ashley nodded, half amused, half awed. She'd read somewhere that Maine Coons were loyal and dog-like, but nothing could have prepared her for Moose's level of devotion. When Jamie was 15 months old, he took his first steps, wobbly and unsteady, arms thrown wide for balance. Moose was right there, shadowing each uncertain move. Jamie's giggle rang out as he reached for Moose's tail, and Moose, gentle giant that he was, simply flicked it out of reach and purred even louder. It became a household joke that Jamie learned to walk by following the cat, not the other way around. The Millers' home was peaceful, filled with soft laughter, shared routines, and the constant, grounding presence of Moose. At night, Moose slept at the foot of Jamie's crib, his large body curled protectively against the bars, head resting on crossed paws. Sometimes, Ashley would wake in the middle of the night, her heart pounding with irrational panic, and tiptoe into Jamie's room, only to find Moose awake, eyes glowing in the night, watching over the baby as if he too felt the weight of responsibility. As Jamie grew, so did his bond with Moose. His first word wasn't mama or dada, but moo, the closest he could come to saying the cat's name. The family would sit together on the living room rug. Jamie nestled against Moose's side, stroking his thick fur with chubby fingers, while Ashley read stories and Ryan drew silly sketches of cats and babies on scrap paper. But even in this idyllic, loving home, small cracks of worry sometimes crept in. Ashley, a software engineer whose mind never fully rested, sometimes wondered if it was normal for a cat to be so attached. She brushed the thoughts away. Life was good, Jamie was safe, and Moose was just a little eccentric. Still, there was comfort in knowing that no matter how busy or distracted she became, Moose was always watching, always vigilant. There were moments, late at night, when Jamie would stir in his sleep and let out a small whimper. Moose would respond instantly, slipping up to nuzzle the baby's cheek, purring in a steady, soothing rhythm until the child quieted. Ashley often found herself smiling in the darkness, grateful for this unlikely guardian. Little did the Millers know, their sense of safety would soon be tested in ways they could never have predicted. But for now, in the glow of new beginnings, Moose watched over his charge with a devotion that seemed almost human, a bond forged not just out of instinct, but out of love. And somewhere deep down, Ashley felt it. The world could be unpredictable, but with Moose at Jamie's side, their family was just a little bit safer. A year after Jamie's birth, the Miller house was a blend of love and routine, but change was coming. Ashley, after 15 months of maternity leave and freelance projects, was offered a long-awaited promotion, a management role she'd dreamed of. The timing was both perfect and terrifying. With the new job came long hours and a commute, and she couldn't be home as much. Ryan's freelance design work was flexible, but not enough to cover all of Jamie's daily needs. They needed help, and quickly. The search for a babysitter began with lists, interviews, and long phone calls with other parents. Every option felt risky. Who could they trust with their most precious treasure? Then Ryan suggested Haley Adams, a family friend and college junior majoring in early childhood education. Haley had babysat for neighbors, always cheerful and patient, quick to smile and full of creative ideas for entertaining kids. She'd grown up on the same block, was the daughter of Ashley's former co-worker, and had just lost her off-campus housing. Having her move in seemed like the perfect solution. She needed a safe place, and they needed someone trustworthy. Haley arrived on a Sunday afternoon, her arms loaded with thrifted suitcases, textbooks, and art supplies. Her energy filled the house. She told funny stories as she unpacked, offered to help Ashley with dinner, and made Jamie laugh by blowing bubbles and making faces. "He's adorable," Haley beamed, bouncing Jamie on her hip. "And Moose. Oh my gosh, I've never seen a cat that big." Moose, true to his cautious Maine Coon nature, regarded Haley with cool indifference. He circled her ankles, sniffed her shoes, then jumped onto the windowsill and sat, tail flicking, his eyes tracking her every move. Ashley chuckled. "Don't mind Moose. He takes a while to warm up, but he'll be your friend once he decides you're not a threat." The first week passed in a blur. Ashley, torn between excitement and guilt, dove into her new role. Early mornings became a careful choreography. Ashley and Ryan preparing for work, Jamie eating oatmeal and banging his spoon, Haley tidying up and singing along to the radio. Haley was organized, attentive, and affectionate. She sent Ashley updates during the day, pictures of Jamie stacking blocks, video clips of Moose chasing a feather toy, funny selfies of the three of them piled on the sofa. Ryan, working from home 2 days a week, noticed Haley's knack for soothing Jamie when he cried. "You've got a gift," he told her one afternoon, watching as she comforted Jamie after a tumble with a gentle hug and a silly dance. Haley just smiled, eyes shadowed for a split second, then brightened. "I love kids," she said, "and it's nice to be part of a family, you know?" But while everything looked perfect, Moose began to change. It was subtle at first, a lingering watchfulness, an extra step between Jamie and Haley during playtime, a low-pitched chirp when Haley entered the room. Maine Coons are famously perceptive, and Moose seemed to sense something no one else did. By the second week, Moose's caution grew into a quiet, feline vigilance. If Haley reached for Jamie, Moose would materialize, sitting between them, body tense, eyes narrowed. He began to follow Haley from room to room, never letting her out of his sight when Jamie was near. During nap times, Moose would station himself in the hallway, as if guarding the nursery door. Haley, at first amused, started to seem unsettled by Moose's presence. "Your cat's a little intense," she joked to Ashley one morning. "He acts like I'm about to kidnap Jamie." Ashley just laughed, brushing it off. "He's always been protective. He'll get used to you soon." But Moose didn't. In fact, his behavior only grew more pronounced. One afternoon, Jamie's giggles turned to wails in the living room. Ashley rushed in to find Moose standing between Jamie and Haley, fur puffed up, tail lashing. Haley held a wooden block, her face red with frustration, insisting Jamie had thrown a toy at her. Moose wouldn't budge, and Jamie clung to the cat, hiccuping with tears. Ashley tried to smooth things over, reassuring Haley that Moose was just being dramatic. But after Haley left the room, Moose paced the floor, glancing at Ashley with a pleading look, as if urging her to pay attention. Ashley felt a cold prickle of doubt. Was she missing something? Later that week, Ryan found Moose curled protectively around Jamie on the playroom rug. Jamie was quiet, chewing on his thumb, eyes wide and watchful, as Haley cleaned up spilled juice. When Haley spoke, Jamie's gaze darted to Moose, seeking comfort. The atmosphere in the house started to shift. Ashley felt it in small ways, the way Jamie would cry harder if Haley tried to comfort him instead of Moose, or the way Moose would sleep pressed tightly against Jamie's crib at night, rarely leaving his side. Even Haley, once so full of energy, seemed tired, distracted, her smiles a little too quick, her laughter a little too forced. Despite these subtle changes, Ashley pushed away her unease. She reminded herself how trustworthy Haley was, how grateful they should be to have her. But every time Moose stationed himself in a doorway, or chirped anxiously as Haley approached, the sense of foreboding grew. Still, life moved on. Work demands increased, leaving Ashley with less time to observe. Jamie grew more attached to Moose, and Moose's devotion only deepened. The Miller household, once a haven of security, now felt quietly unsettled, like a storm gathering in the distance just beyond the horizon. And Moose, always vigilant, never let Jamie out of his sight. Mornings in the Miller house started with Jamie's soft babble and Moose's chirping, but by the middle of Haley's second week, the tone had changed. Jamie, once so eager to greet the day, had grown quieter, his eyes searching the room for Moose before letting anyone lift him from the crib. Ashley chalked it up to teething, a cold, maybe the stress of so much newness. But the unease clung to her, stubborn and silent. One afternoon, Ashley came home early, her head aching after back-to-back meetings. The house was oddly still. She found Jamie sitting alone on the nursery carpet, clutching a soft blue elephant, his thumb planted firmly in his mouth. Haley, usually cheerful, was scrolling her phone on the couch just outside, half watching a streaming show with the volume low. Moose lay stretched out between Jamie and the door, his green eyes locked on Haley. As soon as Ashley entered, Jamie's face lit up. He crawled quickly into her lap, burying his face in her sweater, Moose following so close behind that his whiskers brushed Jamie's arm. Later that evening, during bath time, Ashley spotted a faint purple bruise on Jamie's upper shoulder. It was small, maybe the size of a dime, but seeing it made her heart pound so loud she could hardly hear herself speak. "How did this happen, sweetheart?" she whispered. Jamie blinked, not understanding, busy splashing water and chasing soap bubbles. Ashley's mind raced with possibilities. Did he fall? Did Moose accidentally scratch him? She tucked him into his pajamas and went to find Haley. When she asked, Haley seemed genuinely surprised. "Oh, he fell while we were building a block tower," she explained. "He's getting more adventurous. I didn't want to worry you over a little bruise." Haley's voice was steady, her face open, but Moose, who had wandered into the room, let out a sharp, insistent chirp. He sat by Ashley's feet, eyes narrowed, tail twitching. Haley bent down to pet him, but Moose pulled away, his ears flicking back. That night, sleep would not come. Ashley tossed and turned, replaying the conversation over and over. She had always trusted Haley. Hadn't she known her for years? Hadn't other parents raved about her? Still, she couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. She got up, padded into Jamie's room, and found Moose curled around the crib, eyes half closed, watching Jamie with fierce devotion. The next few days only heightened her worry. Jamie, who had once toddled eagerly toward Haley, now seemed to flinch whenever she entered the room. He would clutch Moose's fur, eyes wide, sometimes whimpering when Haley's footsteps grew loud. Haley, for her part, tried to brush it off. "Toddlers are so moody, right? I think he's just tired today." But Moose's reactions told another story. Whenever Haley approached, Moose would position himself squarely between Jamie and her, body stiff, emitting a low, warning growl that made the hair stand up on Ashley's arms. Ryan noticed the tension too. One morning over coffee, he hesitated before speaking. "Do you think Jamie's acting different?" he asked quietly. "He's always so clingy now. And Moose, well, he's like Jamie's personal bodyguard." Ashley's first instinct was to wave away his concern, to rationalize everything. New babysitter, growing pains, kids and cats being weird together. But there was something in Ryan's voice, a note of worry she'd never heard before. "It's probably nothing," she said, but her words felt hollow. The weekend arrived, bringing a rare morning when Ashley didn't have to rush out the door. She decided to observe quietly as Haley played with Jamie in the living room. Haley was trying, but Jamie was restless, squirming away from her lap, seeking Moose's company instead. Moose made no secret of his displeasure. His tail flicked and he issued a series of short, irritated chirps whenever Haley got too close. Once, when Haley reached for Jamie's hand, Moose actually swatted at her fingers, claws retracted but clear in his intent. "Stay back." Ashley's heart twisted with anxiety and guilt. She wanted so badly to trust Haley, to believe in her own judgment. But Moose's behavior, Jamie's anxiety, and that unexplained bruise all gnawed at her peace of mind. Still, the evidence was circumstantial, feelings and impressions. What if she was overreacting? She thought of all the times she'd heard stories of parents missing red flags, ignoring their instincts out of fear of seeming paranoid. Was she becoming one of those parents, seeing danger where there was none? On Sunday night, Ashley sat at the kitchen table, staring at her cup of tea gone cold. Ryan joined her, worry etched on his face. "If you're really concerned, we should do something," he said gently. "But are we sure? What if it's just a phase?" Ashley shook her head, unable to answer. In the next room, Moose chirped softly as Jamie slept, the cat's presence as steady as a heartbeat. As the days passed, Ashley's internal struggle grew sharper. She vacillated between fierce protectiveness and self-doubt, wanting to trust Haley but unable to ignore the shift in Jamie and Moose. She started to keep a mental tally of every odd moment. Jamie's startled tears, Moose's relentless shadowing, Haley's fleeting looks of frustration. Each night, she promised herself that if anything else seemed off, she would act. For now, all she could do was watch, wait, and hope her instincts weren't leading her astray. And through it all, Moose never left Jamie's side. His loyalty unwavering, his silent warnings growing harder to ignore. The sense of unease in the Miller household grew heavier with every passing day. Ashley, always methodical by nature, found herself turning her analytic instincts inward. She needed something concrete, proof she wasn't just imagining things, that her worries weren't the overreactions of a stressed-out mom. So she started keeping a private journal. It began as a simple list on her phone. Date, time, what happened. The first entry was clinical. Jamie flinched when Haley picked him up. Moose growled. The next day, bruise on Jamie's leg. Haley said he slipped on the kitchen mat. Moose refused to leave Jamie alone. The more she recorded, the more patterns emerged. Moose's behavior had changed dramatically since Haley's arrival. Where he once roamed the house at will, napping in sunny windows and keeping casual tabs on Jamie, now he stuck to the baby like glue. He sat at the nursery door when Jamie napped, refusing to budge even for food. If Haley tried to carry Jamie to another room, Moose would race ahead, blocking the hallway, tail puffed and back arched. Sometimes he'd vocalize, a strange, mournful yowl Ashley had never heard before. Ashley started to test little things, watching Haley and Jamie from a distance. She saw Jamie's face go blank and wary when Haley approached. He'd back away, looking for Moose, hands trembling, sometimes clutching at the cat's fur so tightly that Moose would gently chirp and let him hold on. Haley would put on a smile, but Ashley couldn't miss the flash of impatience in her eyes or the tightness around her mouth. Mealtimes became another battleground. Jamie, once a messy but enthusiastic eater, now picked at his food when Haley fed him, lips pressed tight. If Moose was in the room, Jamie would occasionally drop bits of food down to him, earning a grateful purr. Haley started to complain. "He listens to the cat more than he does to me," she muttered one morning, stacking dishes a little too loudly. "It's like he's obsessed." Ashley tried to talk to Ryan about her observations, but he struggled to see past his own loyalty to Haley. "She's been through a lot lately," he reasoned, reading over Ashley's notes. "Lost her apartment. Classes are tough. Maybe she's just stressed, and maybe Jamie's picking up on that." But Ashley couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was more complicated. She knew all about stress. She lived with it daily, but she also knew when something felt wrong. Meanwhile, Moose's refusal to eat if Haley was around became alarming. The big Maine Coon would sniff at his bowl and then retreat to Jamie's side, ignoring even his favorite treats. Once, when Ashley left Haley alone with Jamie for just 5 minutes to answer a phone call, she returned to find Jamie crying quietly in a corner, and Moose pressed against him, hackles raised. Haley claimed Jamie was upset because Moose wouldn't let him play, but Ashley noticed a redness on Jamie's wrist and wrote it down in her journal, her hands shaking. Haley's own struggles were becoming more visible. She seemed perpetually exhausted, her clothes rumpled, her voice tight. She snapped at Jamie for small things, a spilled cup, a dropped toy. "Can you just listen for once?" Ashley overheard. Her tone edged with anger before quickly shifting back to forced sweetness when she realized Ashley was nearby. At night, Ashley could hear Haley's footsteps pacing in her small upstairs bedroom, could feel the tension radiating from her during breakfast. Ashley's anxiety became constant, a background hum in her mind. She began to doubt herself more than ever, torn between empathy for Haley and terror for Jamie. Was she overreacting because she felt guilty for going back to work? Was Moose just reacting to the stress in the house? Or was he picking up on something real, something that her own heart was too afraid to face? She tried to talk herself down, but every time she reviewed her notes, she felt a sick weight in her stomach. The entries weren't just random, they formed a timeline of increasing distress. Jamie's bruises, Moose's anxiety, Haley's snapping, her own insomnia. It all pointed toward a problem she couldn't ignore. One night, after another tense dinner where Jamie barely touched his food and Haley barely spoke, Ashley sat on the nursery floor after Jamie fell asleep. Moose was there, as always, pressed against the crib. Ashley stroked his fur and whispered, "What are you trying to tell me, buddy?" Moose purred softly, but there was a mournful edge to the sound. Suddenly, Jamie whimpered in his sleep, turning over and searching for Moose. The big cat slipped into the crib with impossible grace, curling around Jamie protectively. Ashley watched them for a long time, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. She made a decision right then. She would no longer ignore her instincts or dismiss Moose's warnings. The next day, she'd call the pediatrician to ask about Jamie's bruises, just to be safe. She'd research options for a discreet way to observe what was happening while she and Ryan were away. Ashley returned to her journal, her entries growing longer and more desperate. She realized how easy it was to miss red flags when you wanted so badly to trust. But she was Jamie's mother, and for her son, she would do whatever it took. Even if it meant facing the uncomfortable truth about someone she'd welcomed into her home. Outside, the house was silent, but inside, Ashley's determination was rising. She knew she had to act soon. And through it all, Moose remained Jamie's silent, steadfast guardian, a living warning that sometimes the ones we trust the most are the ones we should watch the closest. The unease in the Miller home had become a constant undercurrent, tense, silent, and thick as fog. Ashley was haunted by the entries in her journal and the worry that pressed down on her every night. She lay awake, questioning every memory and instinct. The bruises, Jamie's flinches, Moose's relentless vigilance, Haley's strained patience. It all tangled in her mind, refusing to let her rest. Ashley knew she needed proof, something more than a mother's intuition or a cat's strange behavior. Something that would make Ryan see, make the truth undeniable. Whatever it was. Cameras would be best, but the thought of drilling holes, explaining the sudden surveillance to Haley, made Ashley hesitate. Time felt short. Each morning as she left Jamie behind and closed the door, a cold dread followed her to the car. Late one night, as she sat with Moose curled in her lap and her laptop open, an idea struck. If Moose was always there, always watching, maybe he could help in a new way. With trembling hands, Ashley ordered a tiny, wearable audio recorder online, the kind marketed to parents of toddlers, disguised as a collar charm or button. It would arrive in 2 days. The wait was agony. Ashley hovered over Jamie and Moose, looking for any sign that things were getting worse. Haley was polite, but distant, her eyes rimmed with fatigue. Jamie had grown so clingy he would wail if Ashley left the room for even a moment. Moose hardly left Jamie's side, following him like a furry shadow. The morning the package arrived, Ashley wasted no time. She called in sick, feigning a migraine. While Haley took Jamie to the park, Ashley threaded the recorder onto Moose's collar and checked the audio quality. Crisp enough to catch everything, from Moose's rumbling purrs to whispered conversations in the next room. That afternoon, she tested her plan. She asked Haley to take Jamie to the nursery for nap time while Ashley pretended to fold laundry in the next room, nerves tight as piano wire. Moose padded in behind them. Ashley pressed record. From her phone, she heard Haley's voice, soft at first, then strained. "Lie down, Jamie. Come on, enough." A clatter. Jamie's small cry. Moose's chirping grew insistent, the sound echoing through the tiny speaker. There was a sharp edge to Haley's next words. "Stop it! Just sleep already!" Then more crying, and the unmistakable thump of Moose hopping onto the mattress. When Ashley entered the room a few minutes later, Jamie was curled up on his side, hiccuping quietly. Moose stretched protectively against his back. Haley was by the window, staring out, hands clenched. She turned with a too bright smile. "He's just overtired. I'll read to him after he settles." Ashley nodded, heart pounding, and backed out, hiding her shaking hands. That night, when Ryan was home, Ashley played the audio in private. Ryan listened with his arms folded, frown deepening. The evidence was unsettling, but not conclusive. Haley sounded overwhelmed, her words sharp, but there was no outright violence, just a rising tension, an undercurrent of frustration. Jamie's cries, Moose's chirping and yowls, the shuffling of feet. It was all there, but it left just enough room for doubt. "She's obviously stressed," Ryan said, running a hand through his hair. "But she isn't hurting him, at least not on purpose. We can't accuse her of anything criminal. Maybe we just need to talk to her, or find someone else." Ashley pressed her lips together, frustration building. "It doesn't feel right. Listen to Moose. He's never like that unless Jamie's upset. And why is Jamie so scared?" Ryan shook his head, caught in the same web of uncertainty. "I believe you," he said softly. "I just wish we had something more." Determined, Ashley continued recording. She set up the collar every morning, reviewing the day's audio each night. The pattern grew more clear. When Haley was cheerful, Moose was calm, and Jamie giggled. When Haley's tone grew hard, Moose would meow, even hiss, and Jamie would grow silent or cry. Sometimes Ashley caught the sound of a toy slamming against the floor, Haley sighing with exhaustion, Jamie's cries trailing off into silence. Ashley's fear escalated. Jamie's behavior shifted again. He became wary even of Ryan sometimes, screaming when he was picked up or startled by a loud noise. Moose slept in Jamie's crib at night, his body curled around the child, as if refusing to let him out of his protection for even a moment. The tension at home grew. Haley seemed more distracted, snapping at small things, apologizing quickly but with an edge. She spent long stretches on her phone, leaving Jamie to play alone with Moose. Ashley's journal was filling with details, bruises, moods, Moose's body language, Haley's outbursts. She started calling Jamie's pediatrician, asking cautious questions about stress, behavior, and minor injuries. The answers were vague. Toddlers bruise easily, sometimes regress when life changes. But none of it sat right. One afternoon, as Ashley listened to the latest audio, she caught something that made her blood run cold. Haley's voice was low and trembling. "Why do you have to be so difficult? I can't do this, Jamie. Why can't you just stop?" A sharp rattle, Jamie's high-pitched cry, Moose yowling, then sudden silence. Ashley raced upstairs, heart thundering. She found Jamie sobbing in Moose's fur, Haley pale and shaken. That was the last straw. Ashley hugged Jamie fiercely. Moose pressed between them and decided she could not wait any longer. Cameras were going up, no matter how awkward or invasive it felt. She would get the truth. No more doubts. No more waiting. The next day, she started searching for nanny cams, determined to protect her son, no matter what it took. As she tucked Jamie into bed that night, Moose curled up beside him. Ashley whispered, "Thank you, Moose. I don't know what I'd do without you." The big cat purred, steady and strong, and for the first time in weeks, Ashley felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that Moose, her feline spy, would help her find the answers they all needed. Ashley was done waiting for luck or intuition to rescue her family. The evidence was mounting, but she needed the truth in black and white, something undeniable. She spent a sleepless night researching the best nanny cams, discreet, motion-activated, with high-definition audio. The next morning, while Haley took Jamie for a walk to the corner park, Ashley hurriedly installed 3 cameras, one in the nursery behind a row of stuffed animals, one angled at the living room play area, and another tucked discreetly in the kitchen. Every camera was positioned to catch what mattered most: Jamie, Moose, and whoever else came near. Ashley confided in Ryan about the plan. Though still uncomfortable with the idea of surveillance, Ryan understood. "You're right," he finally admitted, voice heavy. "It's the only way we'll know for sure." They agreed to keep the cameras secret, sharing a new kind of anxiety, the fear of what they might actually see. The days that followed felt stretched and brittle. Haley didn't seem to notice the cameras. She went through the motions as usual, sometimes warm and playful, other times irritable and distant. Jamie grew more withdrawn, clinging to Moose, shying away from Haley's hands. Moose's devotion became almost desperate. He followed Jamie everywhere, never letting him out of sight, sometimes even wedging himself between Jamie and Haley when tensions ran high. Every night, after Jamie was asleep and Haley had retreated to her room, Ashley and Ryan would sit together in the dim glow of the living room, laptops open, reviewing the day's footage. At first, there were only small incidents. Haley rolling her eyes, snapping no, a bit too sharply, snatching a toy from Jamie's hand when he threw it. Her sighs of frustration. Ashley's stomach twisted, but Ryan argued, "She's overwhelmed. We've all been snippy with him at times." But then, 3 days into filming, they watched something that changed everything. It started with Jamie sitting in the living room, stacking colorful blocks while Moose lounged beside him. Haley was in the kitchen, visible in the background, staring at her phone. Jamie giggled as he knocked over his tower, blocks skittering across the rug. Moose chirped in response, tail flicking. Haley looked up, frowning, her face tight. She walked into the living room, voice terse. "I told you not to make a mess, Jamie." Jamie shrank back, holding a block to his chest. Haley yanked the block away, tossing it onto the couch. When Jamie began to cry, Haley's voice rose. "Quiet, please. Why do you have to be so difficult?" She grabbed Jamie by the upper arm, tugging him roughly to his feet. He stumbled, face crumpling with pain and fear. Moose leapt up, his fur bristling, and planted himself between Jamie and Haley. The big cat's back arched, and he let out a guttural hiss, a sound Ashley had never heard before. Haley's expression flickered from anger to shock. She glared at Moose, then turned away, muttering under her breath. Jamie wrapped his arms around Moose's neck, sobbing quietly. The video ended with Haley slamming a toy down on the table, her frustration raw and unfiltered. Ashley felt her entire body go numb as she watched. Ryan sat stone-faced, replaying the footage again and again. This isn't just being overwhelmed," he said hoarsely. She's hurting him. And look at Moose. He's doing everything he can to protect Jamie. The next day brought even more undeniable evidence. In the kitchen, hidden from the main hallway, Haley could be seen grabbing Jamie's arm, yelling at him for dropping his cup. Moose, always nearby, shoved his massive body between them, hissing and meowing loudly. Haley actually tried to push Moose aside, but the big Maine Coon stood his ground, baring his teeth. Ashley had to pause the video, hands shaking in anger and disbelief. By the end of that week, Ashley and Ryan had hours of footage. Haley losing her temper, yanking Jamie's arm, slamming toys, shouting threats. And in every scene, Moose was there, puffed up and determined, his loyalty clear and his warnings unmistakable. The evidence was no longer ambiguous. It was overwhelming. Ashley's heart broke for Jamie, for the bruises and fear, for every moment she hadn't been there to intervene. She felt a cold fury for Haley, and a gratitude deeper than words for Moose, who had risked himself over and over to shield Jamie from harm. That Friday night, Ashley emailed the most damning clips to a trusted friend who was a family law attorney. Within the hour, she received a call. "Ashley, this isn't just neglect or bad babysitting. This is abuse. You have to act immediately, not just for Jamie, but so Haley can get the help she clearly needs. Save everything. Don't confront her alone. I'll help you call Child Protective Services and the police." The next steps felt surreal. Ashley and Ryan prepared statements, backed up footage, and rehearsed what they would say when the time came. Every instinct screamed to rush into Jamie's room and never let Haley near him again. But they needed to do things by the book. Ryan stayed home the next morning. Ashley called out of work. As they watched Jamie sleep that night, Moose curled around him like a guardian spirit. Ashley felt a deep ache. She leaned down, whispering thanks into Moose's silky fur. "You saved him, Moose. I'll never doubt you again." Moose's eyes glowed in the low light, unblinking and serene, as if he understood everything. Now, with hard proof in hand, and the authorities just a phone call away, Ashley knew there would be no more second-guessing. The moment of truth had arrived. The next morning, the Miller house felt poised on the edge of a storm. Ashley barely slept, her mind racing with fear, anger, and guilt. Every sound in the house, the creak of the floorboards, the clink of dishes, felt sharper, more urgent. Moose seemed restless, pacing the hallway and chirping softly as Jamie slept. Ryan sat at the kitchen table, jaw clenched, staring at the laptop where hours of video evidence were stored. They'd spoken to their attorney and to Child Protective Services. All that was left was the confrontation. Ashley's hands trembled as she poured Jamie's cereal. Jamie, still half asleep, reached for Moose, who nudged close and let the child bury his face in soft, striped fur. Haley entered the kitchen, looking even more haggard than usual. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her movements were sluggish, as if weighed down by something unseen. She managed to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Rough night, Jamie?" she said, voice forced. She barely glanced at Ashley. Ryan cleared his throat, his voice tight. "Haley, could you sit down for a minute? We need to talk." Haley's shoulders tensed. She hesitated, then slid into a chair at the far end of the table, fiddling with her phone. Ashley tried to steady her breath, remembering the attorney's advice. "Stay calm, present the facts, don't give in to emotion." Ryan opened his laptop, pulling up the first video. "We've noticed Jamie's been having a tough time lately," he began, choosing his words carefully. "He's been scared, anxious, and there have been some unexplained bruises. Moose has been acting protective, and Ashley and I were worried. So we installed some cameras to make sure everything was okay." Haley's eyes widened, and her hands went still. Cameras? Without telling me? Her voice rose, brittle with a mix of shock and hurt. You don't trust me? Ashley's voice was firmer than she felt. We trusted you, Haley. That's why this is so hard. But Jamie is our son, and Moose's behavior told us something wasn't right. We had to know for sure. Ryan clicked play. The kitchen filled with the harsh sounds from the footage. Jamie's small cries, Haley's sharp voice, the sound of Moose hissing and yowling. Haley's face drained of color as she watched herself grabbing Jamie's arm, shouting, slamming toys. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Ashley paused the video. Do you have anything to say? She asked, her voice shaking with a mix of heartbreak and steel. For a long moment, Haley was silent. Her eyes flickered from Ashley to Ryan, then down to Jamie, who clung to Moose, wide-eyed and wary. Finally, Haley's composure crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she buried her face in her hands. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, voice raw and hoarse. I never meant to hurt him. Everything got so overwhelming. My parents are divorcing. My grades are slipping. I can't afford rent. I thought I could handle it, but Moose moved in front of Jamie, positioning himself like a wall between the child and Haley. His growl rumbled deep in his chest, a warning, but also a comfort to Jamie, who pressed his face into Moose's fur. Ashley's heart broke all over again, for her son, for herself, and even for Haley, who was clearly drowning in her own pain. Ryan's tone was measured but unwavering. Haley, this isn't just about being overwhelmed. You crossed a line, again and again. Jamie is a child. He depends on us to protect him. And we let you into our home because we trusted you. We're contacting the authorities. We have to. You need help, but Jamie needs to be safe. Haley nodded miserably, unable to look at any of them. I understand. I don't know what's wrong with me. I should have said something when it got too hard. But I was scared you'd hate me. I was scared of failing. Ashley knelt next to Jamie, Moose between them. She spoke softly, but with a quiet resolve. It's not about hate, Haley. It's about responsibility. You're not alone in your struggles, but you're not allowed to take them out on Jamie. Ever. She reached out, gently stroking Jamie's hair. You're safe now, honey. Moose kept you safe. Minutes later, 2 officers arrived, guided in by Ryan. The police were calm, professional, and kind. They listened to the Miller's account, watched the footage, and spoke with Haley. She didn't fight. Her energy seemed spent. Instead, she admitted everything. Her family's troubles, her financial stress, the nights spent crying alone after Jamie had gone to bed. The officers explained that she'd be charged with child endangerment and referred for mandatory counseling as part of a plea deal. One officer knelt to speak gently with Jamie, praising Moose's loyalty as the bravest cat he'd ever heard of. As Haley was escorted out, she turned to Ashley, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to be this person. Thank you for stopping me before I did worse. Ashley nodded, her own eyes full. Get help, Haley, and thank you for the good days you gave Jamie. The house was quiet after they left, the tension dissolving into a heavy, exhausted silence. Ryan held Ashley as Jamie slept in her lap, Moose curled tight between them. Relief mingled with sorrow and shame. They had done the right thing, but the cost was real. A broken friendship, lingering guilt, and the fear of what might have happened if Moose hadn't been there. That night, as the family huddled together on Jamie's bed, Moose finally relaxed. He stretched his long body along the blankets, eyes half closed, purring deep and slow. a steady heartbeat, a promise that Jamie would never be alone as long as he was there. And for the first time in weeks, Ashley allowed herself to breathe again, knowing that even when humans failed, love and instinct, especially from the unlikeliest of heroes, could be the difference between tragedy and hope. In the days that followed the confrontation, the Miller home felt oddly hollow, as if all the color and warmth had drained from its walls. Ashley moved through the rooms in a daze, her mind replaying every moment. Jamie's cries, Haley's tears, Moose's protective growls, again and again. The tension that had built for weeks had broken, but what remained was an ache, a heavy mix of guilt, relief, and lingering fear. Jamie, too, was changed. He no longer cried out when Haley's footsteps sounded in the hallway, but now he startled easily at unexpected noises, a book dropping, the doorbell ringing, the creak of floorboards in the night. He clung to Moose more than ever, burying his face in the Maine Coon's soft fur, seeking safety and comfort that only his loyal companion could provide. Moose became something of a legend among the neighbors. News of his heroics, how he'd guarded Jamie and alerted Ashley to danger, spread quickly, mostly through whispered conversations over backyard fences and shared glances at the playground. "That cat's a real-life nanny," one neighbor said, shaking his head with a laugh. Another offered to knit Moose a little superhero cape. The attention brought smiles, but Ashley's heart stayed heavy. She knew, better than anyone, how close they'd come to tragedy. Counseling became part of their new routine. The Millers found a gentle, compassionate therapist who specialized in helping families recover from trauma. The sessions were quiet at first, with Jamie refusing to leave Moose's lap, barely speaking except in soft murmurs to his cat. Ashley struggled to voice her feelings of failure. How could she have missed the signs? How could she have let it happen under her roof? Ryan, though outwardly steady, admitted to nights of lying awake, tormented by the memory of Jamie's bruises and the sharp edge of Haley's voice. Their therapist, Dr. Bennett, guided them with patience and kindness. She reassured Ashley that trust is never a mistake, but ignoring instincts often is. "You listened," she said, "when it mattered most. That's what saved your son." She encouraged them to find small ways to rebuild their sense of safety. Routine, gentle words, a home filled with soft music and laughter. For Jamie, progress was slow but steady. He began to smile again during playtime, especially when Moose was near. With Dr. Bennett's help, Ashley and Ryan learned how to support Jamie through his fears, always explaining where they were going, giving him extra hugs, letting Moose be a part of every bedtime routine. Jamie would curl up on the rug with Moose, tracing his big, tufted ears and whispering secrets into his fur. If Ashley or Ryan stepped out of the room, Moose would follow, never letting Jamie out of his sight. It was as if the cat understood that healing meant presence, constant, unwavering, and warm. Friends and family rallied around them. Ashley's mother arrived with homemade soup and gentle words. Ryan's sister offered to babysit so Ashley could rest. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, and slowly, the sharpest edges of their pain softened. They talked with other parents, learning how common it was to question, to doubt, to worry about missing something. Every parent feared the unthinkable, but few talked about it openly. Ashley decided to change that. She wrote an anonymous post on a popular parenting forum, sharing their story. She described Moose's loyalty, Jamie's withdrawal, and the slow realization that something was wrong. She didn't name Haley, didn't point fingers, but she laid bare the doubts, the sleepless nights, the feeling of betrayal by someone they'd trusted. "If you're reading this," she wrote, "and your instincts are screaming, listen to them. Watch your children. Watch your pets. they see what we sometimes miss. The post spread quickly, drawing messages of support, gratitude, and stories from parents who'd faced their own fears. Many thanked her for her honesty, saying her words gave them courage to speak up. Ashley felt a small measure of peace. Maybe something good could come from all the pain. Maybe Jamie and Moose's story would help protect another child, another family from harm. At home, life slowly returned to normal. Jamie's laughter grew louder and his steps more confident. He began to trust again, not just Moose, but his parents, his home, the world outside. There were setbacks, of course, bad dreams, anxious mornings, times when only Moose's steady presence could bring comfort. But there was healing, too. On sunny afternoons, the family would sit in the backyard, Jamie playing in the grass while Moose watched over him from the shade. Ashley and Ryan would hold hands, grateful for every moment of peace. Neighbors sometimes stopped by to check in, bringing cookies or stories. Some asked about Moose, others offered babysitting tips, but most just wanted to show support. The Millers' ordeal had touched the community, reminding everyone how quickly life can change, and how important it is to watch out for one another. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the house filled with golden light, Ashley sat beside Jamie and Moose on the rug. She stroked Moose's thick fur, feeling his deep, steady purr vibrate against her hand. Jamie, sleepy but content, snuggled close. Ashley whispered, "Thank you, Moose. You really are our hero." Moose blinked slowly, stretching out a paw to rest it gently on Jamie's arm. For the first time in what felt like forever, Ashley believed they would be okay. They were not unbroken, but they were together and healing. The scars would remain, but so would the love, the fierce, protective love of a mother, and the extraordinary loyalty of a cat who saved a little boy's life. As the months passed, the Miller household slowly stitched itself back together, thread by thread. Healing wasn't linear. It came in waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp and surprising. There were days when Jamie laughed freely, running from room to room with Moose in hot pursuit, his small hand always seeking a tuft of fur for comfort. And there were other days when the shadows returned, when a sudden sound or a stranger's voice could send Jamie scrambling for Moose's protective bulk, eyes wide with old fear. Through it all, Ashley found herself thinking constantly about what had happened and what it meant. The experience lingered like a bittersweet echo, shaping how she viewed not just her own instincts, but the everyday signs that so many parents, neighbors, and caregivers might overlook. She became an observer, noticing small changes, a pause in Jamie's smile, a subtle shift in Moose's body language, the tone of a laugh or the flicker of hesitation in a friend's eyes. In quiet moments after Jamie was tucked safely in bed, Ashley sat with Ryan at the kitchen table, talking late into the night. Sometimes their conversations drifted into silence, the weight of everything they'd endured settling between them. One evening, as the cicadas hummed outside and the house glowed softly, Ryan said what Ashley had been struggling to voice. "I keep thinking about how easy it was to doubt ourselves," he murmured, stirring his tea absently. "How easy it is to want to trust, to believe things are okay because that's what you need them to be." Ashley nodded, her eyes tracing the lines on her palm. "I know. I wanted so badly to believe it was just stress, or Jamie acting out, or Moose being weird. But he wasn't just being weird. He was trying to tell us something, and I almost ignored him because I was scared of what it meant." Their reflections often returned to Moose, the unlikely guardian who had seen what no one else could. The common stereotype about cats, that they're aloof, independent, even indifferent, felt laughable now. Moose's empathy, his stubborn insistence on protecting Jamie at all costs, had rewritten every preconception Ashley had ever held about animals. She read articles about cats' intelligence, about Maine Coons in particular, learning that some animals do form intense, almost uncanny bonds with their humans. Still, she felt what had happened between Moose and Jamie went beyond any study or explanation. It was love, pure and simple, and a love that had changed the course of their lives. When Ashley spoke about the experience in therapy, Dr. Bennett encouraged her to lean into these lessons. "It's not weakness to be vigilant," the therapist reminded her. "It's wisdom. We live in a world where we're taught to doubt ourselves, to explain away our concerns, but listening to your instincts, especially when those instincts are echoed by someone or some animal you trust, can save lives." The words stayed with Ashley. She wrote them in her journal, repeating them on the hard days when her mind still replayed every decision, every second guess. Moose, for his part, seemed transformed by the ordeal. He was still the same goofy, oversized cat, but his protectiveness had gained a new dimension, almost as if he'd taken on a sacred duty. Neighbors, once amused by his quirks, now marveled at his loyalty. "He's not just a cat," one friend said with awe. "He's a hero." Jamie believed it too. Sometimes at night, Jamie would whisper to Moose in the darkness, his voice trembling between dreams, "Don't go, Moose, you're my best friend." And Moose would stay, purring quietly, a living anchor in a world that had felt unmoored. Ashley became passionate about sharing their story, not for the sake of drama, but to help others trust themselves and their pets. She volunteered at the local animal shelter, sharing Moose's story with new adopters and encouraging them to see the intelligence and heart in every creature. She gave interviews for parenting blogs, always insisting on two messages: watch your children, watch your pets. Sometimes they know before you do. With time, Jamie's trust returned, not all at once, but bit by bit. He learned that grown-ups could listen, that home could be safe again. Ashley and Ryan learned to check in with one another, to discuss doubts openly instead of swallowing them out of fear or pride. They also learned to celebrate small victories. Jamie running to greet his dad at the door, Moose and Jamie curled together in a sunbeam, a night without nightmares. The Millers' story spread further than they ever expected. One autumn morning, a local news crew came to interview the family about Moose, the nanny cat. The reporter asked Jamie, "Why do you think Moose stayed with you?" Jamie looked up with serious, thoughtful eyes and said, "Because he loves me." The simple truth of that answer brought tears to Ashley's eyes. Looking back, Ashley saw that Moose's actions had challenged every lazy idea about cats and about what it means to be a family. He was living proof that love and vigilance can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the ones who save us are the ones we least expect. Their journey had taught them vigilance, humility, and the deep power of connection, not just between people, but across species. And while the pain of what happened would never disappear, it was woven now into a story of survival, strength, and the surprising ways that love can protect, heal, and inspire. A year later, the Miller house was filled with a gentle, resilient joy that only comes from surviving a storm. The memories of those dark months lingered, but they were now distant, outshone by laughter, daily routines, and the quiet confidence of a family that had found its way back to trust and safety. Jamie had blossomed. No longer the anxious, frightened child who clung to Moose for dear life, he had become a lively, adventurous little boy, eager to explore the world around him. He raced down hallways in superhero pajamas, his laughter ringing out like music. Each morning, as sunlight crept across his bedroom floor, Jamie would greet Moose with a delighted shout, "Moose, wake up! Let's go!" And the big Maine Coon would stretch, yawn, and lumber after his best friend, ready for whatever adventure the day would bring. Moose's role as Jamie's protector never faded. If anything, their bond only grew stronger. Whether Jamie was stacking blocks in the living room, digging in the backyard, or reading picture books beneath a blanket fort, Moose was always there, watchful, patient, and steady. Sometimes visitors would marvel at the cat's loyalty, whispering that they'd never seen anything like it. To the Millers, Moose was more than a pet. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, love and instinct can light the way. Ashley and Ryan had changed too. The ordeal with Haley had altered their outlook forever. They no longer took anything for granted: trust, safety, even the smallest moments of peace. The doubts and guilt had faded, replaced by gratitude and a determination to pay their hard-won wisdom forward. Ashley, in particular, had become an advocate for child safety and animal awareness, determined to share their story with anyone who would listen. She wrote an essay for a national parenting magazine, detailing Moose's heroic instincts and the lessons the family had learned. Her words resonated with thousands of parents. "Never ignore your gut," she urged. "Listen to your children. Trust your pets. Protecting your family means believing in what you see and feel, even when it's inconvenient or scary. Sometimes, your greatest warning sign is the smallest voice or a devoted animal at your side." The article was shared far and wide, sparking conversations in homes, schools, and doctors' offices across the country. Ryan created a series of illustrations and posters for local schools and community centers, highlighting the importance of recognizing red flags and advocating for the well-being of children and animals. He included a drawing of Moose, majestic, tail high, eyes wise and kind, standing guard beside a sleeping child. The posters reminded parents and caregivers that vigilance is not paranoia, but love in action. The Millers became active in their community, hosting workshops with therapists and animal behaviorists. They spoke at PTA meetings, teaching parents how to spot early warning signs, not just in their children, but in the behavior of pets, who often sense distress before humans do. Moose, of course, became the unofficial mascot of these events, a living, purring testament to the message they shared. Haley's fate was a quiet footnote. She entered counseling and, with time, began to rebuild her life. The Millers forgave her, not out of denial, but from a place of compassion and understanding. They learned that sometimes people who hurt others are deeply hurt themselves, and while forgiveness could never erase what happened, it could offer a path toward healing for everyone involved. Jamie continued to thrive, his trust restored not just in Moose, but in the world at large. He made new friends at daycare, told anyone who would listen about his superhero cat, and grew bolder every day. At night, Ashley and Ryan would peek in to find Jamie asleep, Moose curled around him like a living shield, their breathing in perfect sync. As the seasons turned, life settled into a new rhythm. The scars remained, a faint bruise here, a flash of fear there, but they no longer defined the family's story. Instead, the Millers focused on hope, on the strength of their bond, and on the lessons they could share with others. They knew their story wasn't unique, that thousands of families face similar struggles every year. What mattered most, they realized, was speaking up, trusting your instincts, and never being afraid to seek help. One crisp autumn evening, as leaves drifted through golden sunlight, the Millers gathered on the back porch for dinner. Jamie, sticky with barbecue sauce, looked up at Ashley and asked, "Why did Moose save me?" Ashley smiled, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Because Moose loves you," she said. "And because sometimes the ones who love us most see things we can't. They protect us in ways we don't always understand." Ryan squeezed Ashley's hand, and together they watched Jamie and Moose chase each other across the yard, one laughing, the other chirping, their joy echoing into the twilight. That night, after Jamie had fallen asleep with Moose nestled by his side, Ashley lingered in the doorway. She thought of the journey they'd taken, the fear, the doubts, the pain, and the incredible power of listening, believing, and acting on love. She whispered a silent thank you to Moose, to her instincts, and to every parent and animal out there watching over someone they love. As she turned out the light, Ashley felt a profound peace settle over the house. Their story was not just one of survival, but of resilience, hope, and the quiet heroism found in everyday acts. And as long as Moose kept watch, Ashley knew Jamie would always have someone looking out for him, a guardian, a friend, and the greatest reminder that love, vigilance, and hope can change everything.